Hello, I'm Greg McQuaid with WTVR in Richmond, Virginia. 20 years ago, in one of my first big assignments as a reporter at this television station, I was sent to Bedford to cover the opening of the National D-Day Memorial. Standing among the sea of aging D-Day veterans that memorable day is a moment this reporter will always cherish. This is the story of the memorial dedicated to those men who fought and returned and those who did not.
You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you.
All night long, bulletins have been pouring in from Berlin claiming that D-Day is here.
Under the command of General Eisenhower, Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
I wanted this memorial to be here before they were all gone.
They are worthy.
If you don't set it on Omaha Beach, this is it. It's got to be the best place.
The story was too compelling about Bedford.
No other single community suffered as much on D-Day as Bedford did.
Bedford, Virginia was officially named the site of the National D-Day Memorial.
Bob wouldn't give up. He made it across that beach that morning.
Been fighting, for 13 years, fighting, dreaming, and building to get this memorial up.
You have raised a fitting memorial to D-Day, and you have put it in just the right place. Not on a battlefield of war, but in a small Virginia town.
Some 3,800 miles from the mountains he had looked toward most of his life, a teenage soldier with his eyes fixed on Omaha Beach would come of age on June 6, 1944. This would turn some of the boys into men. Some would be brave men, others would be dead men, but all those that survived would be frightened men. He would write in his memoirs decades later.
Men were screaming, some were drowning. They were pulling on me, trying to keep their heads above water.
Because you were taller.
I'm taller.
6'5", a giant among men in the landing craft that fateful day. Sergeant Bob Slaughter rose to prominence in 1994, the 50th anniversary of his boots setting foot on French soil at Omaha Beach, becoming one of the best-known D-Day veterans in the world. His vision, to create a national monument to one of the most important events of the last century, D-Day.
He went to Normandy, walked the beach with Bill Clinton, the president at the time.
President Clinton would prove to be an ally in a new fight. In 1996, Mr. Clinton signed legislation from Congress, officially designating the National D-Day Memorial to be located in Bedford, Virginia, as the nation's monument to D-Day. Though declared a national monument, the project would receive no federal funding and would truly become a grassroots community effort.
November 11, 1994, Bedford, Virginia was officially named the site of the National D-Day Memorial.
Mr. Slaughter's vision for a place to remember those lost on D-Day now had a home, a quaint community less than an hour down the road from his hometown, the more urban Roanoke. Bedford could still pass for a quintessential World War II homefront community. That's why some said it wouldn't work.
In many ways, Bedford's small.
No commercial airport, few hotels, but Bedford had something no other area could claim.
The story was too compelling about Bedford. Not only were we going to bid to be the location, we were going to provide a proposal that you could not refuse.
Mike Shelton, the town's mayor in the 1990s, knew 20 sons of Bedford gave their lives on the sands of Normandy on June 6, 1944, giving this rural community the painful distinction of having the highest known per capita loss of any community in the nation on D-Day.
Most everybody who landed on the beach D-Day lost something.
Lucille's family lost more than most on D-Day.
Lucille Hoback Bogus lost 2 brothers that day.
It was almost too much to comprehend the loss of 2.
Sorrow beyond comprehension would decades later inspire her to join the memorial's board of directors. It was time for the world to know of Bedford's sacrifice and that of countless other communities across the nation.
Hopefully our young people will be able to learn the horrors of that day, the horrors of war, and the importance of peace.
Just the emotion in this community, the remembrance, the reverence, the solemnity that came from resurrecting what occurred 50 years previously, just poured out. And when I was contacted, what am I to say? Absolutely we are interested. Absolutely we can do it.
They would come to rely on that can-do spirit. Hired consultants said they would never raise that kind of money it would take to build such a site. Retired 4-star general and key Memorial Foundation organizer General William B. Rawson wouldn't hear of it.
General Rawson grabbed me by the arm and said, "Mayor, we're going to do it on our own." And when General Rawson spoke again, people listened.
This is the first thing we saw when we came up that hill.
Architect Byron Dixon was part of the original committee in Roanoke, tasked with identifying a suitable site for the memorial and creating the design, with 2 potential sites in Roanoke already off the table.
Coming to Bedford changed the whole dynamic. The site is the primary form giver.
The Bedford site, a windswept hill, offered breathtaking, unobstructed views of the surrounding mountains and the town below, the very places those who served longed to see again, though many would not. Sitting just above the town's grade school, this would be a place to educate the generations. Bedford would come to represent all homefront communities who loved and lost during the war.
What you don't have before you in a proposal from other localities are the aesthetics, the environment suitable for solemnity, for reverence, for people being able to really know and see the story. And that's what we wanted to push, and we did, that in order to be able to achieve your mission, this is where you can accomplish that.
If you don't set it on Omaha Beach, this is it. It's got to be the best place.
With location decided.
To symbolize the bond between the U.S. and France, sand from the French coast was mixed with topsoil from Bedford.
The memorial would be built upon that consecrated mix. On Veterans Day 1997, 800 people gathered to break ground at the future memorial site. Among them, once young soldiers who carried the torch for fallen brothers.
I was the only man that got off my boat alive, and the other 29 didn't make it. They lost 50 Christmases, 50 birthdays, 50 summers, and the rest of us should be very grateful that we made it.
A makeshift memorial erected where the signature Overlord Arch would soon stand.
They put up 2 telephone poles with a big sign across it. The motto of the 29th Division was, "Let's go."
In 1998, D-Day hit the big screen. Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan introduced moviegoers to a vivid depiction of the Normandy invasion, helping raise public awareness about D-Day and its impact as a turning point in World War II. The famed director himself donated toward the memorial's campaign.
Donations came in from all over, cartoonist and World War II veteran Charles Schultz leading the way.
Here comes Charles Schultz, to take on the mantle of National Campaign Chair.
Each June, Charles Schultz's beloved cartoon beagle Snoopy reported for duty in the pages of more than 2,000 newspapers across America, depicting scenes of the Normandy invasion. The syndicated comic strip, the only mention of D-Day in most of those papers.
That helped kick off a more nationwide effort.
With that momentum, it wasn't long before the National D-Day Memorial Foundation had something to show.
Here goes the unveiling.
May 31st, 1999, the first statue for the memorial unveiled in a very emotional ceremony.
It brought tears to my eyes. I left 22 of my good friends on the way.
It was a heavy burden that many World War II veterans carried for nearly a lifetime. With a team of talented artists and dedicated citizens, the memorial, built from the ground up, was turning into a magnificent tribute.
One challenge, obviously, is the weight of that memorial there, and we had to go down so many feet, some 60 feet, to prepare the earth to receive it. It took several weeks to prepare the ground just to start pouring the foundation on it.
By March of 2000, the Overlord Arch was on its way up. Huge 37,000-pound pieces of granite standing tall. The memorial taking shape. On Memorial Day 2000, hundreds gathered in the rain to dedicate the first phase of the memorial.
Construction continued, with general contractor Coleman Adams Construction working daily to complete the monument. The foundation pressed on, with the goal of dedicating the memorial the following summer.
The clouds just continue to hover. It's very interesting, right over Bedford.
A little bit of history repeating itself on June 5th, 2001, the eve of the memorial's dedication, as a storm ripped across the memorial site, causing substantial damage just hours before thousands were set to arrive. Weather might have delayed the invasion 57 years prior, but it would not deter those who had already worked tirelessly to get to this day. They pulled an all-nighter, cleaning the chaos the storm left behind. Everything had to be perfect, and it would be, weather included.
What a difference a day makes. It's a beautiful, sunny day for this very special day for Bedford and for the nation as we dedicate this national memorial to our D-Day veterans.
A dream come true, a vision realized.
It's a gorgeous memorial out there. I talked with the organizers of this. They've been fighting, for 13 years. Fighting, dreaming, and building to get this memorial up. Initially, they thought it might just be a small statue somewhere in downtown Roanoke. And look, folks, at what it ended up being. A fitting tribute to the men, our soldiers, who both died and survived on the beaches of Normandy some 57 years ago. And today, here in Bedford, they're going to unveil that monument for the world to see officially, the National D-Day Memorial.
How'd you like to be Bob Slaughter today, the man who thought this whole idea up? I'd say it's a capacity crowd. They were calling for somewhere between 20 and 25,000, and I can't see how they could cram any more people in.
No, I don't either.
Among the crowd, the keynote speaker.
I want to welcome to the Commonwealth and to the dedication of this splendid memorial, the Commander-in-Chief of our nation's military forces, the President George W. Bush.
You have raised a fitting memorial to D-Day, and you have put it in just the right place. Not on a battlefield of war, but in a small Virginia town. A place like so many others that were home to the men and women who helped liberate a continent. Our presence here, 57 years removed from that event, gives testimony to how much was gained and how much was lost. The achievement of Operation Overlord is nearly impossible to overstate in its consequences for our own lives and for the life of the world. Free societies in Europe can be traced to the first footprints on the first beach on June 6, 1944. Today, as America dedicates our D-Day Memorial, we pray that our country will always be worthy of the courage that delivered us from evil and saved the free world. God bless America, and God bless the World War II generation.
The Commander-in-Chief, shoulder to shoulder with our veterans during tributes.
What you are listening to now is a 21-gun salute in honor of all the veterans of World War II.
perhaps a culmination.
It's very important to them that this is finally happening, and there was a bit of a rush because these guys are all in their upper 70s and 80s, and a lot of them are dying of old age, and they wanted this memorial to be here before they were all gone.
With that critical mission accomplished, the memorial took its place among the nation's monuments to heroes, calling all visitors to understand and appreciate the true costs of freedom. Now, the work of the memorial to teach the lessons and legacies of D-Day was just beginning. Byron Dixon knew to get Normandy right, he had to see it.
When I went to Normandy, I happened to be there at low tide, and I went out to the water's edge and looked back at the cliffs, and I just couldn't imagine what they must have endured.
The architect wanted that exact feeling to grip visitors at the National D-Day Memorial.
We understood there were 3 generations involved in this project. There are those that were still alive. There were the families for probably another generation would come here and want to know what their relatives did. And the long term, after we are all gone, people will still come here wanting to know what those brave soldiers did back in 1944.
Whether reliving D-Day history or hearing the story for the first time, Dixon would work to create an immersive experience for all. In addition to traveling to Normandy, committee members visited 14 stateside memorials in their effort to create a monument unlike any other.
We weren't creating a theme park, but we knew that if this was to be a success, people would have to enjoy it. The commemoration memorial, the arch, was going to be at the high point.
Throughout history, European nations used a classical arch to commemorate military victory.
By using the arch, we felt we had given it the European flavor that it needed to be associated with Normandy.
With the battle and victory in northern France, an arch was the obvious choice. Symbolism does not end with its iconic shape.
It all is indicative of Art Deco architecture, the primary style of the early 40s.
Standing 44 feet 6 inches tall, a reference to the invasion date, the 6th day of the 6th month of 1944. The arch also contains 94 sections of granite. Perhaps coincidental or anecdotal, 1994 was the year founder Bob Slaughter returned to Normandy and walked the beach with President Clinton. It was also the year the push to build the memorial gained fresh momentum. Alternating stones on the top of the arch mimic the gables of French homes, while the black and white striped pattern is symbolic of the same pattern painted on all Allied aircraft on D-Day for easy identification. Overlord, emblazoned in gold on either side, a single word with immense meaning. The invasion's code name would soon be defined as freedom from tyranny. Though a single day would change the course of world events, Operation Overlord was the result of a carefully orchestrated plan years in the making. The setting, England. If the memorial were to narrate the D-Day story, England is where that story would need to begin.
We had to start somewhere, so we started down and work our way from the garden, and then we came up.
Sculpted by the late Jim Brothers, the Supreme Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands inside an English folly at the memorial. In the famous photograph, forever linked to the Normandy landings, Eisenhower is seen talking with the 101st Airborne just before boarding their C-47s for the first assault on D-Day. Eisenhower looks out across a stylized English garden, connecting the memorial with England, where most of the planning and preparation for the Normandy invasion occurred. Eisenhower is surrounded by bronze portrait busts of his Allied commanders, each also sculpted by brothers. Later, Foundation President Dr. William McIntosh decided to expand the memorial's portrait bust collection.
He was at that time looking at different sculptors to commission, to consider for commissioning the Allied leaders.
The Foundation selected sculptor Richard Pumphrey.
Dick is a real artist. It was a very flattering thing that he let me into the studio early on.
Dr. McIntosh is a wonderful historian, and he was able to share with me in many of our sit-down sessions prior to beginning the sculptures his objectives for the memorial that he wanted the piece to convey. There was a very purposeful plan in the arrangement of them. the people who would be opposite them would be historically important, and so they would nod, in effect, by looking in that person's direction to show the relationships of those individuals. These figures, for the most part, were well known to so many people, and as a result, the expectations are great. And with the first portrait being that of Winston Churchill, I thought I was going to die. Everybody thinks they know Winston Churchill, and so you had better get Winston Churchill pretty right. They're made 20% larger than life because outdoors over a distance, we know that because of perspective, as things get farther away, they appear to diminish in scale. And so by making them a little bit larger at the memorial, the intent was to have them not disappear over distance. And perhaps, as you did get closer, to have them take on a little bit larger than life consequence.
Small, perhaps easily overlooked details are just as consequential in the telling of the story.
Those stairs are a replica of English estate landscaping. Once you come up those stairs and turn, you could see the waterfall, you could see the replica of the Nazi embattlements. You knew at that point in time you were walking through the invasion.
Separate, adjacent plazas would pay tribute to the air power of D-Day and the naval forces so crucial to achieving victory.
We wanted the water to come down to give the feeling that everything was moving up. The Jim Brothers sculpture there going up, scaling the cliff, is really amazing, and it really tells us so much. It tells so much. The interesting thing was it was so big, it's so tall, that Jim did that whole sculpture horizontally. He never saw it vertical until we got it here.
But the true test would come when Leonard Lamel, a decorated former Army Ranger known for his actions at Pointe du Hoc, saw the sculpture for the first time.
You know, he went up the cliff. You know, he was one of his boys with the Rangers that went back and took out the guns. And he just looked at that thing for, I know, 10 minutes, and he just couldn't. Jim had actually, he said, he's captured it, you know. His work just seemed to come alive.
Even in his depiction of death on shore, Brothers humanized the toll of D-Day in the hauntingly realistic beach tableau.
Jim is a real craftsman, but he conveys the things that the beach tableau sets out to achieve. He really does.
He spent hours gathering the equipment. You know, all the equipment that these sculptors, the soldiers in the sculpture are wearing, their guns, their weapons, their canteens, the shovels, everything you see on their backpack and so forth, he actually acquired. You can just see, you can see Jim Brothers in every seam on that soldier's shirt. You can see his attention to detail on that rifle.
And in the soldier's movement from the drop ramp of a granite Higgins boat.
You really couldn't do a diorama of the invasion scene if you didn't have a landing craft.
Or without including German hedgehogs by sculptor Matt Kirby, representing those used to sink Allied vessels.
It represents a barrier that we overcame as a nation and as a modern nation and as a culture.
Facing down the same obstacles puts you there on Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau, or Sword Beach, surrounded by the sound of simulated bullets hitting the water.
The shell splashes in the water. That was totally by accident. We had originally planned to have 13 water spouts that just shoot up, you know, and they fall back down on themselves, and you just see a column of water. Back in the control room, one of the assistants from the manufacturer of the equipment, he hit one switch, and all of a sudden, you know, this flood of water came up. We kind of looked at each other. I said, sure did look like a gunshot to me. They said, can you do it again? You don't know how many folks have told me how realistic that is. If we can make it as realistic, as reproductive as the actual event, why don't we just do that?
It's amazing what you've done here.
The visionaries, the historians, the artists.
Thank you for giving this gift. It's not just today, but it's going to last forever, and to remember such an important time in history. So thank you.
Well, the credit for that really needs to go to the foundation and the D-Day veterans who stuck through this.
The veterans, the founder, the late Bob Slaughter, whose likeness in bronze will continue to welcome and bid farewell to memorial visitors for generations to come. Full victory, the objective on D-Day. Thorough record-keeping would come later, if at all. The memorial's early planners could not find an accurate count of those killed on D-Day, much less an authoritative roster listing the names of these heroes. They quickly determined that if they were going to build the nation's monument to D-Day, they would have to discover the name of every soldier, sailor, and airman killed on June 6, 1944.
It is heroic enough to document the American losses, but to take it on to other nations that participated in that.
For more than a decade, former Foundation President Dr. William McIntosh oversaw the memorial's necrology project. Lead researcher Carol Tuckwiller painstakingly combed through burial records, after-action reports, personnel files, unit histories, and military documents to develop the most complete list of D-Day fallen anywhere in the world.
We never would have had the product that we had, because it's not just the physical plaque, but the accuracy of the content of the plaques.
When it can be verified from several sources a service member died on June 6, 1944 during the invasion, the memorial adds the name to the necrology wall. The name-by-name listing serves as a powerful tribute and a moving testament to the valor, fidelity, and sacrifice of men who, on a single momentous day, paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom of others.
Recall seeing people walking to the name of their relative and looking at that, and I think that did set it apart.
It will have a multi-generational consequence to people. It's like going to the Vietnam Wall and finding a friend or a family member up there.
It gave some blood, I guess, to a cold piece of metal. There are lots of stone edifices all over the country and all over the world. The ones that mean something are the ones that have some educational foment to them, and that's terribly important. It was then to me, and it is now. We needed something to sell. Well, we've been selling valor, fidelity, sacrifice for months and months while all this construction is going on, and that really was the etiology of the plaque program.
The memorial's plaque program started with securing an underwriter for the first necrology plaque installed in 2003. The further addition of narrative plaques allowed the memorial to share stories of the various vessels, regiments, and divisions involved in the Normandy campaign, as well as highlighting the lesser-known stories of D-Day.
Having a story, and it went beyond just a slogan, was terrifically important, and having people feel like they had an investment in that story.
Donors ardently invested in the sculptural program, the necrology plaques, and the narrative plaques throughout the monument, which added immensely to the educational narrative.
Whether it's from the soldiers or the political leaders who are represented, everybody represented there on the plaques and in sculptural form contributed to the success of the mission.
Each plaque addition further fulfilled the memorial's educational objective and helped secure much-needed funds for memorial operations in the early years.
Get those people on board was very important.
The memorial needed people like former Virginia State Senator Elman T. Gray on board. In 2004, Senator Gray, a member of Virginia Military Institute's class of 1946, announced his underwriting of a narrative plaque and a major gift to the memorial, with a challenge to other VMI graduates to help match his gift. In 2006, the memorial's main plaza, symbolizing the English Channel, would be named Elman T. Gray Plaza, honoring the late senator and World War II Navy veterans' contribution and dedication to the monument. The memorial's other major areas were also named that year. The Richard S. Reynolds Senior Garden, representing the invasion's planning phase, pays tribute to the industrialist who risked everything to produce aluminum for the war effort. The Roby W. Estes Senior Plaza, celebrating victory, honors the wounded D-Day veteran whose family's trucking company helped drive America's post-war economic boom, and the Edward R. Stettinius Jr. Parade, named for the architect of the Yalta Conference and United Nations. Fittingly, the parade depicts the world beyond D-Day. Paying homage, the aptly named statue, the last monumental piece for the memorial sculpted by Jim Brothers before his death, is a tribute to the Bedford Boys and to all of the communities across the nation who lost loved ones during the war. A grieving soldier stands over a fallen comrade's temporary grave. Dedicated on the 70th anniversary of D-Day in 2014, Normandy veteran Ash Rothline generously helped fund the sculpture and donated his own Legion of Honor medal, the highest French order of merit.
It remains permanently enshrined here at the memorial and is placed on the helmet of homage every D-Day eternally.
Rothline personally carried out that tradition each year through the 75th anniversary of D-Day, repeating his mantra, "We will never forget," a vow made by the memorial to hold the yearly pinning ceremony for generations to come as a reminder of those who gave their lives in World War II. The last surviving Medal of Honor recipient from World War II, Herschel Woody Williams, unveiled the Gold Star Family's Memorial Monument on Memorial Day 2017.
America owes these people an honor and a tribute that we have never given.
Recognizing the families who gave a son or daughter in service to our nation, set in a tranquil garden where loved ones can come to grieve and remember. The memorial's Gold Star Monument, the first in Virginia. That same summer, the memorial dedicated the first of its iconic Quonset huts. 3 of these structures were built between 2017 and 2019. During the war, Q huts served as barracks, hospitals, mess halls, as well as any other function crucial to the war effort that would fit under the signature curved roof. The memorial's Quonset huts house a gift shop with offices, an education space for student programs, lectures, and exhibits, and a pavilion, a gathering place for veterans and guests. Thanks to the generosity of World War II veteran Bobby Johnson, longtime supporters Peter and Fleta Ring, and Claiborne and Mary Ellen Robbins. The Q Hut Village was completed by the 75th anniversary of D-Day, allowing the thousands attending the commemoration to imagine themselves in the military camps of England before D-Day. June 6, 2019, a date so significant it called for an event more impressive than anything witnessed here before. Billed as the final salute, among the 10,000 in attendance, Vice President Mike Pence and more than 100 D-Day and World War II veterans.
Today, we have the opportunity to bring history to life here in Bedford. This is the Piper Cub, the B-25 Mitchell bomber, Boeing's flying fortress, the F-35 Lightning II, the C-130 Hercules.
A rousing aerial tribute to all of the heroes of World War II. Then, each one in attendance crosses the bridge to be individually recognized.
To these and other D-Day veterans among us, I say, gentlemen, you honor us with your presence. And I want to assure you, we see you not just as you are, but as you were.
It is now my privilege to read the names of the veterans who are here today. Henry Gurney, Private First Class, U.S. Army. He landed on Omaha Beach with the 2nd Infantry Division, then fought in France. Ash Rothline, Tech 4, U.S. Army. His unit made its way across Normandy shortly after D-Day and continued into northern France and Germany. Olivia Clark, Private First Class, U.S. Army Air Force. She was one of only 18 women chosen to go into Germany with General Patton. Bill Sisk, Private First Class, U.S. Army. Went ashore on D-Day on Utah Beach with the 90th Infantry Division.
And today we also think of others from this very community who were among your ranks on that fateful day. 44 boys who had never strayed far from home mustered out to England, and some to eternity. And on this 75th anniversary of D-Day, on behalf of a grateful nation, to those brave veterans gathered here who fought so long ago, and to all those looking on from glory, we say one more time, thank you for your service. Thank you for our freedom.
Built with urgency, so those this monument honors would see it in their lifetime.
They are worthy. We have to ask ourselves, are we going to be?
The journey to get to the national treasure we see before us would be long, daunting. The challenges at times seemed insurmountable. Early organizers and those who followed proved themselves worthy.
There were days when this project was very much at sea, but there is certainly an appreciation of teamwork.
It's not the bricks and mortar, you know. I mean, it works. It does what we wanted it to do, but the most significant thing for me was the time that I spent with some of the greatest people in the world. Bob wouldn't give up. You know, he made it across that beach that morning, and I said, you know, anybody can do that. Is not going to let some little complaining stop him. He's not going to do that.
Thank you for the memorial, and thank you for the predecessors who provided the impetus to provide this memorial to remind people, like Mr. Slaughter, who had the vision for the memorial and was able to rally people around him.
And around the idea that the lessons of D-Day could be taught every day. Bob Slaughter had the privilege of living to tell the story when so many of his Army buddies weren't as fortunate. This is where we will educate every generation to come in memory of the generation who in many cases gave their all.
This is a place that brings you back to think about what we are, who we are, what our values are, and hopefully we'll keep teaching it and teaching it and teaching it.
It comes back to the memorial serving as an educational resource, and not just of the event, but of the people involved in making that event a reality.
Didn't we learn a lot? And are we learning a lot still?
The early founders of the National D-Day Memorial would be pleased to see how far we have come in such a short period of time. Our focus remains on remembrance, commemoration, and education. And as we become further removed from the event of D-Day itself, it is imperative that we continue to honor our remaining veterans while also preserving their stories. For the memorial, it is not just about the number of visitors who come through the gate annually, or how many new members join, though those items are certainly critical to the site remaining open and viable. Long-term success must be measured in the preservation of history and in capturing the thoughts and ideas of those who were there and the tangible objects they carried with them. The memorial has worked diligently to collect thousands of oral histories, artifacts, photos, maps, letters, memoirs, diaries, and other items that shed additional light on the actual event and can add to the history for generations to come. For memorials like the National D-Day Memorial, remembrance is central to any lasting monument, and education is central to remembrance. We recognize that monuments are physical structures subject to the passage of time and the dimming of memory. Education is critical. We cannot help but lose the men and women of D-Day. That is in higher hands than our own. Losing the history and legacy of D-Day, however, is squarely up to us. At the National D-Day Memorial, as in other places, we are charged with preserving the memory of those veterans. This becomes both the focus and the challenge going forward. Inevitably, time will take our veterans. The memorial and institutions like it have been and continue to be the torchbearers of their legacy. There is certainly a sense of urgency to not only thank veterans while they still walk among us, but to do all the work necessary to preserve and pass on the legacy they inspired. To achieve this, the memorial hosts thousands of school children each year by providing detailed, hands-on history programs. In addition, lectures, teacher institutes, children's day camps, patriotic concerts, 1940s dances, military parades, outreach programs, virtual programming, commemorative events, and other activities are held. Memorial staff and volunteers work diligently to educate and instill in others the history and significance of D-Day and World War II. To further the memorial's reach, the staff has created an active online presence with social media, blogs, videos, and virtual programming, where we are reaching tens of thousands of students and adults each month. We can now interact with students throughout the country and abroad through our educational offerings. Perhaps most exciting for the future are plans for expanded facilities, including an outdoor amphitheater, a nature trail, a motor pool building, and a future education center. The amphitheater will include a covered stage and seating for 1,000. It will support daily programming and year-round military events, veteran reunions, concerts, theatrical performances, and school and community activities. The Memorial Walking Trail will be a 1-mile wooded trail around the perimeter of the memorial. It will include a vista overlook of the Blue Ridge Mountains, educational stations, and covered rest areas. Soon the memorial will build a motor pool to house an extensive collection of fully restored World War II vehicles. And in the not too long distant future, the memorial will build an education center, which will contain exhibit galleries, interactive exhibits, and additional classroom space. In preparation for the expansion, the memorial continues to examine visitor traffic, which consists of a large number of veterans and their families from all eras. Though the memorial's focus is D-Day, the monument speaks to the larger meaning of service and sacrifice. If veterans of today see the veterans of yesterday honored, it reminds them their own service is appreciated and will be remembered by future generations. By connecting the story of veterans who served previously to the experiences of those who serve now, the memorial remains relevant. So too does the message of vigilance. Perhaps D-Day veteran Robert Bob Sales, who spoke during the 70th anniversary of D-Day at the National D-Day Memorial in 2014, best sums up the desire of our veterans and the families whose lives were touched by D-Day. Sales, who served with Company B of the 116th Infantry Regiment of the 29th Division, was the only survivor on his landing craft of 30 men on D-Day. Sales was awarded 3 Purple Hearts and the Silver Star, among other medals, for battling his way across France before being wounded and left partially blind. In 2014, he said this: "It is in our hands as veterans and as citizens to preserve the legacy of those who were there. Long after the last of us has rejoined their ranks, we have to make sure that there might never come a day when June 6th means no more than any other day. That there might never be a generation of Americans for whom the name Normandy means nothing at all." Bob Sales would have agreed that there are many emotions triggered by the memorial, some about national pride, but many about individual heroism, loss, and life beyond war. The National D-Day Memorial, with its vivid depictions of sacrifice, is a living memorial to the spirit of the brave souls who preserved freedom so that democracy could prevail. As guardians of their memory, it is up to all of us to pass on their stories and inspire others to discover what one generation was willing to give to preserve freedom for the next.